Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending RTI's complimentary webinar entitled Integrating New Technologies to Drive Deeper Insight. My name is Todd Doreen, and I am Head of Marketing here at RTI Research. Before we get started with our presentation and my introduction to today's presenters, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping things first. We will be recording this presentation and posting it to our newly designed company website. All attendees will be in muted mode, but do have the capability to ask questions at any time through the GoToWebinar chat function. I will be monitoring those questions, and hopefully we can answer all of them, but if we don't, we will follow up afterwards. At the end of the webinar, and when you exit, there will be a short, very short survey pop-up, and we'd greatly appreciate if you took the minute to answer those questions, which will give us feedback and suggestions for future webcasts. Before I turn today's presentation over to our two presenters, please allow me to give you a little background on them first. Lisa Cooper is a Senior Vice President here at RTI, and for the past 25 years has built strong relationships with a variety of CPG, healthcare, and beauty industry clients over that time. Lisa's success is based on her ability to design research that fully addresses marketing objectives, deliver consumer insights within a marketing context, and above all, provide superior client service. Lisa is also active in CASRO, where she is currently working on a committee tasked with promoting marketing research as a career with the goal of attracting the best and the brightest students to our industry. Our co-presenter, Michelle McDonald, brings over 10 years of experience leading research teams within global market research firms. Within RTI, Michelle leads the execution of several large-scale programs, including multiple hybrid communities, as well as ad hoc initiatives for key retail and financial services clients. Prior to RTI, Michelle held leadership roles at Insight Express, TNS NFO, and Hamel Associates. Okay, let's get started with today's webinar. It's with great pleasure to introduce Lisa Cooper and Michelle McDonald. Ladies, it's all yours.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd. And thank you, everyone on the line, for attending. We appreciate you taking the time today, and we feel confident that it's going to be a good use of your time. You're going to walk away having learned a few things. We've worked with most of you on the telephone, but there are a couple of people who have not worked with RTI, so if you'll allow me just a brief minute to give an overview of the company. RTI's focus is as a global research company consultancy. So we focus on helping our clients to make sound business decisions. We've been around for over 30 years, and we're now over the 50-person mark. And we really, what we feel very good about, and we think most of you on the phone who've worked with us would agree, that the strong tenured senior staff here at RTI is a real major strength that we have. We're involved at every level of the research. No one's ever going to sell you something and then move off of it. We work with you throughout the entire process of every research initiative. So let's just give you a peek at the three of us here. We thought it might be nice in that sea of faces if you could get a sense of who we were. Todd is on the left, obviously. He's the obvious choice, the only male in the room. Then there's Lisa, and then Michelle on the right. So now you know what we look like when we're speaking. All right, very quickly, here's the agenda for today. Here's what we're going to be talking about. First is the world is changing very rapidly, both in general and specifically as it relates to the job that we do, researchers. Number two, and this is the important stuff, we're going to show you how to integrate new technologies that will lead you and your teams to more powerful insights. Then we're going to talk about getting you into the game, invite you to put some of this to work in your organization. And finally, a question and answer period, although we would repeat what Todd said, and that is you have the ability to type in questions at any point. So we would invite you during the entire webinar to please ask any question that you have, and Todd will read it out to us and interrupt so that you get your answers as we go along.
So to begin, Lisa alluded to the sort of the framework that we're all working in. And one of the things that we hear over and over from our clients is that as researchers, we're being called on to be a catalyst for action within the organization. So you're being called on to make recommendations and really drive the business, as opposed to in the past when it was really just more receptive, hey, I need a survey run, and here's your data, and then move on to the next. Today, insights teams are really being asked to do a lot more than that. However, you're being faced with a challenge of doing more with less. You're in back-to-back meetings all day. You're faced with cut timelines, and your budgets are being slashed. You are likewise having your department slashed. And a lot of times what we're hearing is, this is overwhelming, you are under-resourced, and just overloaded. We feel your pain. Believe me, we hear it from multiple.
And now there's this sea change coming. So you are being called to function at this higher level with less and less resources from all directions. And the world is changing, and you need to learn about it, but you don't even have the time. So what we would like to say is that if you spend the next 30 minutes with us, we will give you that knowledge, and you will have the power. We are going to give you some really concrete examples of how we've taken these new technologies and put them to work to energize or supercharge what we can deliver to you, and therefore what you can deliver to your partners.
So let's begin by level setting. As Lisa was talking about all of these new technologies, mobile is really at the center of this change. And we've been tracking mobile engagement with a quarterly online survey. And one of the things that we very clearly see is that everyone owns a phone. Nearly half are currently smartphones. And that's double what it was a year ago. Tablet ownership is growing exponentially. And the expectations for 2012 is that with the free iPhone and the Kindle Fire and all of these other low-cost entry-level products, the ownership and use of these products is just going to skyrocket. And then when you start to break it down and you look at different segments of the population, non-whites or women, for example, smartphone ownership and tablet ownership is even higher. And what's really important to just keep in mind is that the phone is not just for calling or even for texting anymore. It is so much more than that. And it's something that's uniquely personal, and individual connections to them are almost visceral. The phone is always with us, it's always on, and we use it to access the internet. And projections that we've seen is that by 2015, 70% of internet access is going to be from a mobile device. And I mean, I can certainly see it in my own life, and I see it in the lives of those around me. Mobile internet activities include everything such as accessing social media, shopping, managing financial accounts, and believe it or not, taking surveys. So a couple of years ago, when we talked about using mobile, excuse me, for doing surveys, it was all about quick hits. It was all you could do with a survey was 5 to 7 questions, closed end. You had to be really cautious about who you're going to get. But today, because the activities and abilities of the phones are so much more, you can do so much more, and you can reach more people. Mobile technologies themselves have reached a critical mass, which enables us to synthesize the new with the old in order to operate in this fast-paced, very budget-strapped environment. And the synergies of the different tools mean that the whole is really greater than the sum of its parts. So you can incite action when you use these approaches to deliver more meaningful outcomes. So now what we're going to do is just take you through a few of these different techniques and technologies and talk about not just the methodology itself, but really how we've integrated the different technologies into what we're doing on a regular basis to enrich and what we feel is deliver more. So the first one that we're going to talk about is location-based services. Location-based could be geo-tracking, or it could be QR codes. Geo-tracking, of course, is using the GPS in your phone to push notifications, including surveys, based on your location. QR codes appear everywhere, and I'm sure you've seen them at this point. You've probably even scanned them It's quick response code, and it could drive you, by scanning it with your phone, to content, to a website, or in our case, to a survey link.
So we're going to talk a little bit specifically about why QR codes are a great tool for us to do research with. It really can give you an early read on performance of new products or services, and it's a cost-efficient and time-efficient way to find and recruit early triers. And we've done this a couple of times now, where we've worked with the manufacturer in one of our client companies to put a QR code on the box of a new product. When that box is in the store and someone goes and buys it, they have the QR code right in front of them explaining that if they do scan it and complete a survey, that they will get some kind of coupon or other kind of remuneration. And what this does is it just completely cuts the cost, because it's always so hard to find early triers who are by nature a low incidence group. Now, we're basically saying, you're an early trier, you have an opportunity to do this survey. And again, going back to what we've been saying over and over, everyone either has or is going to very shortly have the capacity to do this kind of thing with their phone. Scan a QR code and go to websites, surveys, etc. So it was really a terrific way for us. As I said, we've done early trier research in the past, and it's always been very painful and expensive, and this made it much less so.
And one of the nice things within the QR code, or the hyperlink to the survey, is that you can pre-populate some information. So we know exactly which store the individual bought the package in. We know a little bit more about them than just driving them to a survey the way you might have done in the past if you put a web link out there or something along those lines. So, and Todd's just pointing to the screen that we have a question that just came in about QR codes. Could a QR code be used in global research?
And the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, there's really no limit to it. If we can put the QR code out there anywhere in the world, it basically leads people to this same place. It leads them to our survey. So yes, absolutely we can. And now we'll move on to a second example. And this one we'll talk about how ethnography and other traditional qual methods that we've done in person in the past or on the phone in the past can now be integrated into what we do, and they're no longer tied to those traditional methods. Michelle's going to talk about that a little bit.
We recently did a really interesting, I think, piece of research that involved what would have been in the past shop-alongs, but this was really something done on mobile. Our client needed to understand the impact of very specific design elements on their consumer experience. It was the type of thing that if you asked a consumer about it to recall when they were in the establishment, you probably wouldn't have gotten the level of granularity. So, of course, historically, you would have to do a shop-along and have a moderator go with the consumer to the different locations. And quite honestly, we just didn't have the time, and I'm quite sure the client didn't have the budget to accomplish that. So we moved everything to be mobile. We recruited individuals into the program and had them complete tasks via a mobile survey while they were in the establishment. And at the end of the list of tasks that they had to accomplish, they were instructed to take pictures of particular elements that stood out to them. We then recruited a subset of those individuals into an IDI so that we could really drill down into, well, why did you take this picture? And what is it about this picture that worked? What is it about this element that didn't work? And as a result, the client was able to identify very specific elements that drove both positive and, importantly, negative experience. And it really provided their design team with insight that they otherwise, to be perfectly honest, would not have gotten, because the timeline was like 3 weeks start to finish. So it was, an amazing example. Obviously, using pictures and mobile phones could be applied to so many other things. It could be used to see how consumers are storing products, to do pantry checks, shopper insights, of anything along those lines. And going beyond pictures, an alternative too is to incorporate video into video chats into our research methodologies. So using webcams and even camera phones these days, we're able to communicate face-to-face with respondents even though we're at remote locations.
So sometimes the greatest challenge that you have is to persuade your brand team or your marketing team to take a specific action, even though you know that it's the right action. Sometimes people get on their hobby horse and they are married to a particular idea and they cannot move beyond it. So you can use video chat. Excuse me, you have so many alternatives, Skype and Google Talk, etc. They're on laptops, they're on phones now. So it's really globally available. And you can find hard-to-reach consumers and use the voice of that consumer to help convey the sentiment and help really persuade people to do what you want them to do. So a good example of this is recently we did a value proposition testing. And there was one value prop that did not do well at all by the numbers, the traditional quant numbers. But it would not die. It would not die. There were a couple of people actually who just were so married to this idea, and no matter what numbers you showed them, they could not believe that this did not do well. So when we did our presentation to senior management, we included a 25-second video clip of a group chat that we had done, and this was 6 consumers who were sitting around, had been shown this particular value proposition, and all were kind of agreeing, shaking their heads, saying, oh no, this would not mean anything to me. This would not motivate me to do what you want me to do. And that was actually, that 25 seconds was the thing that changed the minds of the management folks who had been married to this idea. So we've seen that power in action. It's awesome, and we know that that would be something that would be useful to you. Everyone has a story like that. Okay, now we will move into some social media because we know that social media, social media is all over the place. As Michelle was saying, that's kind of where people are now. Just some quick facts about Facebook and Twitter in particular. Facebook has more than 800 million active users, and almost half of those access from their mobile phone. There's that mobile thing again. Half of the people in the U.S. are on Facebook. So obviously this is huge. It's growing. I think that Michelle said that she saw something this morning about that number being higher even.
Yeah, the Today Show this morning quoted 845 million users on Facebook. And they quoted something that Lisa and I say all the time, that if Facebook was a country, it would be the third largest country in the world.
Right. That never fails to amaze me. So clearly a huge opportunity for us if we can harness it, and we're going to tell you a couple of ways that we've done that. Twitter also. Twitter is growing. 140 million tweets were posted daily almost a year ago. So as you can imagine, that number surely has grown. Great opportunity. So anytime that something is growing, something else is typically declining, and that's the case here, and that is email. From 2009 to 2010, which are the most recent numbers we could put our hands on, there was a 10% decline in email overall. However, when we look at the decline at that same time period in email among teens, it was a 59% drop. So if you're trying to reach today's teens, it's not going to be on email, and today's teens are going to be tomorrow's young adults, and they're not going back to email. It's not going backwards, it's only going forward. So, a couple of cool things that we've done in terms of finding and accessing some very targeted, often low incidence groups using Facebook and using Twitter. Facebook, we can use that to meet them where they are. It's an organic environment. We have several active initiatives right now where we are embedding our survey into our client's Facebook page. So people are there already. We don't even have to drive them anywhere. They're on the Facebook page, and if they're there, they're our target group, and they see our survey. And we have, I think, is it 65% completion rate of surveys in Facebook, which is enormous. That's huge, much, much higher. I mean, I think it might be in the single digits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if you're talking about panel, it's traditionally in the single digits. So people are just so active on Facebook, and they're willing to share. It's a share environment, and so it seems natural that they would share.
Like other mobile, it's very personal. So if I'm on a Facebook page and I'm a part of that, it's a subject that is near and dear to my heart. And so when we're looking for these very specific audiences with very specific interests, it is just a fantastic place to find them. And Todd, we have another question. So, Lisa, is Facebook representative? So the samples that we are seeing in Facebook.
Well, interesting, because Facebook as of today is not, we can't use it as our own personal panel. So it's not like we can reach out and throw a survey out onto Facebook to the universe. So I don't know that representativeness is so much a thing of today. I would say it's not representative, but what we use it for is to find those difficult to reach targeted consumers, and for that it's appropriate. That's not to say that in the future, if there's some kind of partnership that arises between Facebook and research, that we might not be using it in that way. But as of now, no, it is not being used that way.
So one of the ways that we've incorporated Facebook is into our hybrid communities. So an example is a case where we were challenged to develop a 360-degree view of a consumer in a very cost and time-effective way. And what we were able to do is to develop a hybrid platform for accessing these very highly targeted respondents, customers, at the drop of a hat. And we were also able to recruit in competitive users as well, so that we could get the competitive reads and likewise those customer reads. The result is that the client is able to conduct research that would otherwise have not have been conducted. And to be perfectly blunt, the client had experience in the past with quantitative proprietary panels where you recruited people in and you were able to get the quantitative projection. But what was missing from that was the online community. And having the community enables the exploration, the ideas, and just hearing the buzz. That's something that we've found, particularly hosting it within a Facebook environment where individuals are getting updates of the group within their news feeds, and it's part of their daily life. So we found a very strong relationship that develops among the community as well as with the panel itself. And as a result, we see those very high response rates that Lisa was talking about, but also very low attrition rates. People want to be involved, and it's great. They share pictures of their grandchildren and of them in all different types of environments. And we've seen it time and again that this hybrid of using the community with the structured panel to get those projectable samples really works to keep people engaged.
And I think what arguably makes it even more, talking about the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, is that you get that synergy, Michelle, between the panel and then the chatter. So you can actually tell who answered your survey, your quantitative survey, and then watch that person's chatter.
Absolutely, and we've done that a number of times where we've done assessments quantitatively and then saw chatter that happened, just in the viral environment, and it really enhances our understanding of what's going on and what is the consumer thinking when they're answering our survey questions. It's so much deeper.
And also, one more thing, because I know Michelle's not going to brag about this herself, but she has written for one of her clients who does this hybrid panel. She writes a monthly newsletter, which has gotten like amazing, amazing feedback and reception. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, I think that probably a lot of folks who do panels want to include some sort of newsletter or update to the broader team. I've seen it done in emails, et cetera. And we've really just tried to embrace it to be more of, just more visual and incorporate the chatter from the Facebook sites to engage. And the whole point is that a panel or community is only going to be as strong as the clients who are using them. So one of the key things that we feel is important is to go and promote it internally at the client side. And so the newsletter serves that purpose. We try to make it pithy and fun and visual, and it's been very, very well received. So thank you, Lisa.
Sure. And Todd has a question. Someone has asked, how long would it take to set something like this up, and what would it cost?
Well, both are sort of variable. We could set it up, honestly, within a couple of weeks. It does not take long to get the environment going and to specify what we need in terms of the sample and who we're targeting. In reality, because it's usually a large-scale program and you want to get buy-in at the client side from various groups and cross-functional teams, it usually ends up taking more along the lines of like 10 to 12 weeks, but again, very variable. And in terms of cost, that too is variable because it all depends on is it blinded or branded, how big of a panel do we want, how do we want it to engage the community, how will that piece of it be used? Is it really just to drive the people to stay involved, or are we actively having more moderated discussions, et cetera? So it's quite variable. It can be tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, depending.
But I think it's probably fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, that over time, over a year's period or a couple of years, that it's going to pay back in spades if we make that monetary commitment, because then every time you put a quantitative survey out there or you do some kind of a moderated chat, et cetera,
very inexpensive. So I would say within 6 months you sort of hit that break-even point. Mm-hmm. And we actually, for our clients, we monitor that so that you can bring that to the senior executives when you have the budget conversations to say, okay, well, this is what we were able to accomplish and this is what it would have cost versus our actual out-of-pocket.
Great, thank you.
So as we've gone through all of these different technical difficulties, we'll just advance. So as we've gone through all of these different types of technologies and some of the areas that are still emerging, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the more traditional, at this point, mobile methodologies and integrating mobile, web, app, SMS texting into what we're doing today. And certainly, as you probably are aware, you could do an ad hoc mobile survey that is essentially using mobile internet. You could do something app-based if you're doing more like diaries or longitudinal tracking, where you have people opting in to download an app on their phone. And likewise, by the way, we can do that with the hybrid communities too. And we have experience of the mobile panels. But then also SMS texting, if you need to reach those folks who, the 40% of people who don't yet have the smartphone, they are very actively texting.
So if you need to understand in-the-moment sentiment, Michelle talked about that a little bit in terms of people being in an establishment and giving feedback real time, then using texting is a way to do that. And sometimes what you can do is it really informs results that otherwise we would have depended on just based on recall. So we've all been there, and we know that recall can be misleading. If you ask me about a product that I tasted yesterday or 2 days ago, I might not really give you the depth. Even A, I might not give you what my opinion really was at that time, or B, if I do, I might not give you the depth of information that you would like to get from me. So we've had some really powerful experiences with this, where the real-time findings have actually changed recommendations or otherwise very much impacted outcomes. The first example is for a personal product, so something that you used on your body, and we had sent these to people's homes and asked them to use the product, and we followed up with a traditional quantitative survey. But in addition, we asked a subset of the group, about 30 people, if they would text back and forth with us 5 times a day during the entire usage period of this product. And they did that. And interestingly, when we compared the quantitative results and the information that we had gotten from this texting piece, we saw that the quantitative results told us that this product was uncomfortable. People had a lot of discomfort with it, and discomfort was coming back in a big, loud way. Overall discomfort. However, when we looked at the text, what we were able to see, because we had done them 5 times a day, was that in fact, in the morning and the early afternoon, and even for some people into the later afternoon, discomfort was not an issue at all. But towards the end of the day, the product became uncomfortable. And so, again, when people were just doing this based on recall, when they were responding based on recall, they were remembering discomfort, wholesale discomfort. The truth was that it wasn't wholesale discomfort. It became uncomfortable as the day went on. And so the recommendation to the R&D team wasn't, hey, you have to scrap this because it's uncomfortable, or go back to the drawing board and figure out a new way to make this. It was, listen, discomfort starts to cut in after about 6 to 8 hours for most people. Can you make some tweaks? That's a very different outcome. So hugely important. A second example of where this recently was very useful for us was when we used some qualitative chats with consumers while they were using a beverage product. And we did things like, if the beverage, you're drinking it right now, if it was a celebrity, who would it be? Give us 3 celebrity names, or give us 3 words to describe the product. And we were able to take that and deliver to the creative team some consumer-driven language. And again, the power of that is that it was consumer-driven language in the moment. So really became, I would think, more emotional. You know, we're always looking for that emotion, and sometimes when you're doing the recall thing, it's much more tactical. However, if you get me in the moment when I'm doing something, I might give you more of that emotional feedback, which of course really makes the creative more powerful.
And that's something, again, that we see time and again with anything having to do with the mobile phone, because it's so personal and so unique to each individual. You do get a more emotional response than you would taking an online survey on a desktop computer. So at the end of the day, we believe that when you are integrating all of these different technologies, you really can do more with less. Many of the tools get you access to the audience and the solutions that would otherwise be cost-prohibitive, time-prohibitive in your current world. And at the end of the day, they allow you to focus on being that catalyst for action that your organizations require.
All right, so we said that we were going to kind of tie up before the Q&A with the get in the game. I think that we've persuaded you that these tools are a means to an end, and often that means that that end is being able to persuade your internal clients and build trust with them to incite action. We started out with inciting action, right? We started out talking about the fact that that's really where it's at and where it's going. For you and for us, that's what we're going to be expected to do in the future. And these tools are a means to that end, to inciting action, to driving strategy, to impacting the business. So you probably have not had homework before when you've gone to a webinar, but we're going to ask you to just take a minute or two after the webinar and think about how perhaps you could use at least one of these tools to enhance something that you're working on, enhance an initiative. And the good news is that you don't have to know how to do it. You don't have to understand how to do it. That's our job. But if you have an inkling that something that you've heard today might make what you're doing better, we would love to hear about it, and we invite you to call us about that. Well, thank you for the questions that you've asked throughout. We appreciate them. It helps us to know what you're thinking and make it better. If there are any questions now, if anyone has any questions.
No, looks like everything that did come in you guys addressed. If anything does come up afterwards, feel free to use my email at tdoreen@rtiresearch.com, and I can definitely get it off to both Lisa and Michelle. But if you ladies are done, I wanted to not only thank you so much, both of you, for your presentation, but the expert insight to better understanding the newer and emerging technologies and modalities that obviously we have been using and will continue to use and evolve in the market research industry. So your expertise was obvious. Your knowledge transferred today was greatly appreciated by all. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we did record this webcast and we'll be posting it to our website. So when you folks have a few spare minutes, please go and check out our newly launched website for some additional company information, what overall services we provide. And again, thank you all for listening. Thank you for your participation. And thank you for filling out the survey in advance that will pop up at the conclusion of this webinar. And that, at this point, concludes our webinar. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.